let's just face facts. Football's a beautiful sport, but it's also a really infuriating, stupid one, isn't it? Just 72 hours on after that wonderful celebration at the Etihad, which produced a wonderful cup run. That brilliant moment where Maxi scored in the, what was it, 38th, 39th minute. God, it feels like an age away since that game took place. And it really is now, isn't it? After all that euphoria, after the pride that was on show at the end of Saturday night, back down to earth with not a bump, but a crash at the MKM Stadium yesterday evening as we went down 2-0 to relegation rivals Hull City. Joining me tonight, Graham and Sam. It's going to be a particularly interesting show, I think. I've had to put Graham in the middle of me and Sam because I think across the course of the next hour or so, there might be one or two little tete-a-tetes going on between the two of us. I'd love to be able to keep the whole chat to a minimum and just spend 45 minutes previewing the John Allsop derby on Saturday afternoon. However, I sense me and Sam are not going to allow each other that honour. Sam, why don't you chuck us straight into it? Not the rant, just a match review. Hull 2, Argyle 0. You were one of the brave souls on Humberside last night.
Yes, I was. I got out of the house at about 8:30 Tuesday morning. Got back in at about 5:15 Wednesday morning. So again, a very long day. As often has been the case this season, the football spoiled an otherwise good day out. Hull were dominant from minute 1 up to, I won't quite say minute 90 because I think we were okay in the last 10, but the game was gone at that point. They were certainly dominant from minute 1 to about minute 80, without a shadow of a doubt. As the comment comes up on your screen, not a shot on target all game. There was only even one shot, full stop, and I think from about the 75th minute was our first one, and then after that, I think maybe a couple more. It's only about 3 or 4 shots, maybe all game. The first of which coming in the 75th minute, none of which on target. Just a really, really dreadful performance, all round dreadful. Never got going. Looked tired. Looked deflated. Looked like we were going at pre-season pace. Hull really controlled the game. I suppose if I could say anything positive, I'd say that although we were being completely overrun in midfield, our last-ditch defending was okay. They didn't really have any sitters. Pleguezuelo got in the way of a couple. Katic got in the way of a couple. Maxi got in the way of a couple. We were Hazard had a sort of decent angle save, but we were only having to do so much last-ditch defending because we were being so completely dominated. Like I say, start to end, we didn't. Not only did we not have a shot, we barely even got the ball in their penalty box. Barely even got the ball in the final third. We were absolutely dreadful. Absolutely dreadful. Went in at half time. Somehow we were still 0-0. Goodness knows how. I guess, like I say, Pleggy had quite a good game, got in the way of a lot. Come out second half, and within a few short minutes of doing so, Hull get the lead. Katic, who's been largely very good for us, had a really poor moment. Completely misjudged the ball going through the middle, let Gelhardt running behind him, and when you give a striker of his quality that chance, he's most likely going to score, and score he did. I will say the second goal will probably come to
Are you not going to mention the wicked deflection it took when it failed to Gelhardt then, Sam?
It took a bit of a deflection, but I think you'd hope a defender would follow the run a bit better for me. I will say for the second goal, that one we were unlucky because that was completely offside. Really quite a way offside as well. I don't know how the referee and the assistant didn't spot that. So, as much as I'm going to rant, I'm not going to just rant for the sake of ranting. The second goal was genuinely unlucky because it was clearly offside. But we were never in the game even before that point. So I suppose it's better to get the bad luck out of the way in the game that we're going to lose anyway, rather than to have bad luck in the game when we're actually playing well, like has happened on some previous occasions. So, I don't know. And then finally, in about the last 10 minutes, we realised, hang on a minute, this is actually potentially a relegation deciding game. We started to treat that game with the magnitude that it deserved. We actually progressed the ball forward with urgency when we had it, which we never did up to then. We actually tried to play through the lines a little bit, still quite direct, but played through the lines a little bit more than we perhaps previously had. So I suppose, if anything, you can say the last 10, last 15 give us some cause for, excuse me, bunged up again, do apologise, give me some cause for some positivity. But yeah, just a really deflating, demoralising performance. Hull were completely the better team, fully deserved their win. Could have been more, but then, I don't know, I guess if their goal was rightly given offside, and if we'd had that good improvement anyway, maybe we might have fluked the draw, but it wouldn't have been deserved. I can't believe that we've gone and put in a performance like that in what we all agreed was the biggest game of the season. You know, I get their tie and I get their leggy, but they did stay up there for a reason. The reason being that was maximum strength and conditioning, and as Miron Muslic said in the interview, the players just didn't do their jobs. Essentially, you know, they weren't sharp enough, they weren't quick enough. I wouldn't necessarily agree that's the only reason. We'll come to that in a minute, but I think it's certainly part of the reason. And goodness knows what went on in those few days from Saturday to Tuesday after putting in such a heroic, battling performance the way in which we did, even though we were outgunned for quality, to then just go to Hull and play like it was a testimonial game was just completely, I can say, demoralising beyond my comprehension how we played so badly. Can't believe how we were so bad. Yeah, that's my run through.
Graham, is there anything you want to challenge Sam on in that run through? Is there anything you saw differently last night to what he did in the stadium?
Well, I think the best part of the evening for me is when the Sky feed went offline for about 10 minutes and I didn't have to endure it, and it was touch and go whether it was going to come back, because it was dreadful. I think the one element I cannot understand, and I did praise him on Saturday, it was Bundu. And I think Adam Virgo pointed it out in the co-commentary. He had 8 balls played to his feet, and at least half the times he tried a fancy flick to nobody, didn't control the ball. And he's our main focal point for building an attack with the 10s going beyond and the wing-backs going forward. And it broke down from him. The wing-backs didn't get forward at all. They were pushed back by the Hull wing-backs. The 2 10s, Al Haj perhaps was slightly better than he has been. Barley was never in it. And the Houghton JB combination in the middle is not championship standard. It just isn't. And when your game plan is to play high up the pitch, retain possession, win second balls, and you don't retain possession, you don't win second balls, the ball comes back as it did. And we never looked like getting out our own half, let alone making any decent transitional play. It was a shocker. And I mean, it's difficult. I wasn't there, so I can't see what Muslic's reaction was, because the camera didn't capture him very often. But he must have been frustrated at the lack of the basics that we have implemented reasonably well in the last few games, just weren't there. Whether that was Hull doing a job on us, I don't know. But what we've got to understand is that teams are going to play us at our own game. I mean, we come on to Sheffield Wednesday, but they will make sure our wing backs don't get forward. They will try and make sure that they crowd the midfield area so they win the second balls. So the philosophy of playing is going to get challenged unless we step up to the plate. And we showed no signs of stepping up the plate yesterday at all.
Graham, I'll stick with you on this one. I mean, we all know the mental and physical output that went into Saturday night, and we all knew that we were always going to play our strongest 11 here, regardless of whether or not those players finished the game on Saturday, because we don't have a huge squad. We're not blessed like Leeds and Burnley and clubs at the top end of the division. We have a very small squad, and that squad is already short on quality. What do you put it down to last night? Because as I said to you backstage, I had the feeling 5 minutes in that the game was set in its ways. We were a yard off it then, let alone by the hour mark when we were 2.5, 3 yards off the pace. What do you put it down to before I get Sam's first rant of the evening out of the way?
I think it's easy to put it down to tiredness, but you got to have a competitive instinct. You want to win the ball. I mean, Miriam Muslic said, winning the duels. Did we win a tackle? Players that have been winning tackles for us in past games just weren't. Look at Puhac, he had a nightmare. Maxi had an absolute shocker. I mean, he's no wonder he got taken off because he was in danger of getting sent off. I think what Hull did was expose how far short we are of proper championship standard. If you look at Pedro, if we had a Pedro up top, we'd be a totally different team. And they had their midfield runners. You could barely mention whoever played for them, but they were all over us. They were straight in the tackle and they moved the ball quickly. Things that we were doing a few games ago, and it's just gone. Whether it's physical tiredness, mental tiredness, but if we're going to get out of the hole that we're in, it's got to change on starting Saturday. I think one of the problems is without Hardie, we've got no pace. And what Hardie does is run beyond the defenders and stretches the lines and creates opportunities for transition. Hull were able to push up fairly tight, compress the midfield, and crowd it out and win the ball and play from there. And we were second best.
You imagine you saw what my paranoia was like at Blackburn, Graham, when Adam Forshaw was going to score that afternoon. You can imagine what my paranoia was last night when Plymouth Argyle's Joel Gelhardt started up front, given we've been linked to him in the last 3 transfer windows.
Yeah.
Sam, Graham touched on it there. We just don't have the quality to compete at this level, do we? That's a reality, isn't it? Regardless of who's in charge and out the technique.
We don't have a squad that's anywhere near the end of the division. No, I would agree with that entirely. But do we think that this is the absolute very best that this squad is capable of doing? I think absolutely not. I think that there's so much more that could be gotten out of this squad. This is not a squad of absolute mugs. Yes, he had a broadly quite a poor game last night, but Maxi has shown his quality at this level and elsewhere. Katic has had a very good career at this level and elsewhere. Oranola and Pleggy have both had a good start to 2025. Randall showed in the first half of the season, I know he didn't play last night, but just generally Randall showed in the first half of the season how well he can do. Al Had probably the only bright spark in the Rooney era going forward, apart from Whittaker, who's now gone. Connor Hazard has statistically been one of the better shot-stopping keepers, I think, in the Championship this season. This is not a squad of absolute mugs. Ryan Hardie got, and I know I accept we did miss him last night, but Ryan Hardie got double-figure goals last season. Puhac has done well in decent European leagues. Bailey has been absolutely terrible for us, but you don't score as many goals as he has, not only in the Swedish league, but even in the Europa League against good teams without having some quality about you as a player. So I think it's so easy just to write off the squad and that this is just a wretched, damn squad and nobody could be doing better than them. I think the head coach does have to take some share of responsibility. And I'm saying that whilst I accept that there are a lot of good things Miran Muslic does have about him. He certainly has won us some points through his in-game adaptations. I think he certainly seems, based on his track record at Circle and based on how well he's done in some games, I think he's certainly a very capable coach, without a doubt, a very capable communicator. But I think every manager has their kryptonite, and I think his is fast becoming his total rigidness of style. We play the same way pretty much every game, every opponent. And yes, when we're playing Liverpool, that's absolutely great to have that, Derek Adams style performance and just sit deep, hit them on the counter, and then shut them out. But in games like that, when we need to actually press forward and need to win, it's nowhere near good enough, in my opinion. I hope he can adapt, is all I can say. Because if he doesn't adapt, it's going to turn very sour very quickly. We're already, I think, on Twitter, Pastotti, Facebook, starting to see the first rumblings of discontent, like we saw with Foster, people moaning about the style of football, and I think understandably so, because I think the style of football is often pretty turgid, to be honest with you. I don't mind it being turgid when it's a game against a much better opponent, and we just need to put all men on the ball and grind out a result at all costs. But in a game like that, I think it was just miserable to watch, if I'm truthful with you. And I think that, and again, I'm not wanting. I know how this is going to get interpreted the wrong way, and I know it's going to seem like going near. I told you so. But everything I worried about in the Man City whole preview as to how it could play out, it's how it did play out. They completely cut off our long balls. They completely nullified our press, played through it, and we sort of, because we have that one way of playing, we didn't make, certainly didn't make enough. Maybe in the second half there were signs of it, but we didn't make enough of the small adaptations to play through it. It's kind of like it's this way or the highway, and if it doesn't work, there doesn't seem to be that much of a plan B. I think he has shown a plan B in terms of bringing on the right subs in the previous game, like bringing on Mumba in the Cardiff game, bringing on Hardie in the West Brom game. So in terms of subs, I think Muslic can make good adaptations. I don't think he's so far shown he can make those adaptations needed when we are struggling in games. It seems like, as great as the West Brom game was, as great as the Liverpool game was, as great as the Millwall game was, it seems to me like teams have now figured out our style, and we now can't figure out how to respond to them. Maybe to some extent it's down to just players not being good enough. Maybe to some extent it's down to players being shoddy and not doing the right thing on the day. But I do also think that we've gone from a comment from Lewis saying, would you prefer to go all out on the attack and get torn open, or prefer managers trying to build a base to play from? Well, look, my answer to that would be, doesn't have to be one extreme or the other. We've gone from Rooney, that was sort of, it's certainly for parts of the spells, ultra play out from the back at all costs, to somebody who sort of seems allergic to having the defenders hold on to the ball for more than 1 or 2 minutes. It just seems like it kind of reminds me a little bit of somebody who's gone on a diet for 2 weeks, and then the diet isn't working, so they decide to completely, pick out and order takeaways every day. It doesn't have to be absolute Groundhog Day. It doesn't have to be one complete extreme to the other, So I do think that whilst he has got, a lot of good qualities in some areas, and whilst I think that for all the fact I do think we have been a bit figured out, he seems an emotionally intelligent guy, he seems a smart guy. I'd like to give him every chance to, over the next 11 games, to adapt to it and prove that he can make the tweaks necessary. I think at the moment, you have to put the share of the coaching and the management just as much, if not more so, than the team, in my opinion.
You also have to realise, Sam, that was our 5th game in 17 days with an already wafer-thin squad. And when you factor in the fact that 2 of those games are in the space of 3 days against Luton and Cardiff, and then you've got the mental and physical output against Manchester City, surely in that period, regardless of whether or not you're Plymouth Argyle or you're Sheffield United or you're Sunderland or you're any team in this level, probably with the exception of Leeds, who look just head and shoulders above everybody, there's going to be a drop-off in performance, isn't there? I mean, before the Blackburn game, we were all eulogising after what was a great week, 10 days in our season.
We were, but
5 games in 17 days, of which 2 came in the space of 3 days, and you've just had a game against Manchester City where you've given absolutely everything, and then you've asked essentially the same 20 players to go out again 3 days later in the biggest game of your season with a wafer-thin squad and no attacking options. I expected better, and I expected a better performance, but I don't think that's necessarily a massive issue on Miran Muslic's tactical style, or that we've been figured out.
I just felt that there were, in both of those games, in Blackburn, Luton, well, all 4 of those games. Yes, I know what you're saying, but the old saying goes, a week is a long time in football. So if 7 days is a long time in football, 17 days is an even longer time, right? And I think in all 4 of those games, we were comprehensively outclassed. We got 2 points out of those 4 games. I think we were lucky to get as many as 2. I don't think we deserved the point at Luton. Cardiff, they went down to 10 men. Fair enough, you could argue we forced that by the Mumba sub. But really, they could have gone in at halftime more than 1-0 up. So we got 2 points out of those 4 league games. Yes, brilliant effort at City, but I don't think that's necessarily contradictory of what I'm saying, Joe, because I do think that style of game is where Muslic does excel. But in the games against championship opposition is where we struggle. So yeah, 4 games ago we were all very happy, but this is now 4 games since. It's not just 4 games in which we failed to win. It's 4 games in which we've been comprehensively outclassed in all of them. And I just feel in all of them, there are things that we could have been doing to counteract this, like rather than going long every time. Cardiff were not again, a lot of people in the comments with more respect seem to think it's one extreme or the other. People seem to think I'm wanting total football, champagne football. And obviously, most would love that in an ideal world. There can be a bit of a balance. Like Cardiff went long ball, but they were long ball. They would often have a few shorter passes to play the ball into the channels and work the ball down the line. Certainly when they had 10 men. It doesn't have to be. It seems to me like with the coaching style, they are almost like PAFC King has said we play the same way every game. It doesn't take a genius to work out our long ball and chase styles, and I agree with that. It seems to me like they are, and maybe this is being a bit harsh, that they are encouraged to treat the ball like a hot potato when they've got it in defence. They're encouraged to just get rid of it ASAP, and to me, that's not football. That's NFL. If you want to kick the ball down the pitch and let someone chase it, that is NFL football, and that to me it's not the way I think to play at this level. And I don't think it's beneficial to play it to the extreme that we are. Obviously, yes, we can.
It's not the way this squad was built for, though, is it? This is the other issue. No. This squad was not built to play this style of football. Therefore, you've got to give Muslic the opportunity to bring in his own squad to play his style of football.
Yeah, fine to an extent, but I also do feel that even then with that, it's still worth having a plan B. It's still worth having another way of playing. I suppose you can say it's one of two things. You've either got to learn how to execute the plan A a lot better, or you have to have some semblance of a plan B. And ironically, given the fact I've had a big rant all game, I do feel the last 10, 15 minutes was probably the closest we got to seeing a plan B. And actually, we were okay in that little spell. So whether we'll then see whether we'll see a little bit more of that approach, maybe a move to a 4 at the back. Even I don't know. Although as much as Muslic is a 3-4-3 guy at heart, he has played 4 at the back, I think, in his early days at Circular, and I think when he was playing when he was managing, beg your pardon, in the Austrian league, he played 4 at the back at times, and that's what Transfer Market said. Anyway, I don't know how true that is, but I think it's not like he has never played 4 at the back. So I think there are these adaptations that can be made, and I just think when it's such a one-beat style, it is kick long and chase hard, and I think when it had that shock factor in those few games, and when we were executing it flawlessly, it was doing well, and I'm not churlish. I think he's getting some good attributes, but when it's faced the first sign of adversity, I feel the foundations behind it have crumbled, and I think it's too predictable the way we play. Absolutely too predictable.
Graham, is there any coincidence that in this run of 5 games in 17 days that I talk about, of which only 1 was at home, and we've spent a lot of time travelling, bear in mind, of those 17 days, there's a lot of time away from Plymouth and away from the training ground here. I know, obviously, we've stayed in the north to maximise recovery time, yada, yada, for this one. There's no coincidence as well that this drop-off in performance has come whilst during those 5 games in 17 days, Ryan Hardie has been out of the side, is there? You and I saw him taken out at Blackburn, and that was the moment really where this all began, wasn't it? Frankly,
it was. And Ryan Hardie, whether he plays as the 9 or for me more effectively as the 10, he is what gives us the variety and the opportunity. If you play with Bundu, as was yesterday, he didn't keep possession. He has the ability to win flick-ons, but did he win any yesterday? The interesting thing, I was just looking at, and I know stats are everything. Hull actually played more long balls than we did yesterday. For all the talk of us being a long ball team, Hull was significantly more long ball, and we had more forward passes than them. Unbelievably, we had more accurate passes than them, and we had more total passes than them. And I actually checked the stats for the Millwall game, and they're almost exactly the same. Where there's what happened yesterday, and Sam's alluded to it, teams are finding us out. And we'll find this on Saturday. The wing backs will stop getting forward. And if we don't win the second balls, we'll lose possession and we'll be under the cosh, susceptible to the breakaway. And one of the things that did worry me yesterday, as good as Max has been, twice he was done for pace. Now, I haven't seen him done for pace before. Is that tiredness? You know, I don't know. I think some of the performances in the last 3 weeks have been tiredness related. And if I was Muslic, I wouldn't have him doing any training at all until Friday. Just rest. But now we've got Wednesday, Portsmouth, Derby. 2 home games if we can get on the front foot. Funny enough, Portsmouth is a game I think we can actually nick something against expectation. And then we're back in it. But then this is the critical figure, and I mentioned it before. We don't score the first goal. 28 times out of the 37 games, we have not scored the first goal. And that's 75% of all games. And when the first goal wins 70% of all games, that is a major, major issue. It's the same under Wayne Rooney. Ironically, it was the same under Shuey. I don't know what it is. I don't know whether we don't get out the blocks quick enough. I just don't know. But we don't score the first goal. And we have to. We have to, one way or another. We have to.
Am I right in saying as well, we've only held the lead away from home this year for 2 minutes? And that was at the Stadium of
Right.
Light.
That was when we briefly
Correct,
went up Sunderland and equalised. 2
Yeah.
minutes all season we've led away from home.
But it was the same under Shuey before he departed to Stoke. We were poor under Shuey away. We were abominable under Wayne Rooney away for most of it. So what is it? Is it the journey time? Is it the physicality? Is it the fact that we haven't got a big enough squad to cover the players who are down? I mean, the staff will know. They'll know their output on their runs and so on. I mean, Adam Randall, when he was at Senior Greens, said that he's had to up his running 10% more under Muslic. And I just wonder whether cumulatively, with all these games away and all the rest of it, they can't maintain that level of running that's an essential part of the system that he plays. And other teams that have played similar fashion. I forgot it. The manager at Leeds, the Argentine. I've forgotten his name now. He was sorry.
No, Bielsa. You mean
Bielsa? Yeah.
Oh, Bielsa.
Famously, he had the same way of playing, and you ask the Leeds fans how they expired towards the end of the season, or their players got tired or even got injured. And I've argued all along, last season and this season, we don't have the physicality to be a competent championship team. He's addressed it partially with Katic and Maxi in the centre, but we haven't got the physicality in the middle of the pitch. We just haven't. You see, Hull overran us yesterday, and Cardiff did first half. Physicality, pace. We haven't got those players. And as some have intimated, we're a League One side masquerading in the bottom part of the Championship at the moment, and that's the truth of it.
I would have to ask Graham for the next 40 minutes or so that we are live, if you could stop mentioning our title-winning head coach. It is before the watershed, and I'm a little bit worried about how Sam will react. Josh Tucker's comment on screen saying that I'd see you've glued your head back on after the offside. We're not going to talk about it because I've been reliably informed by our supreme leader, Aaron, that we should just forget decisions. We should just not go on about them and just not mention them. So we're just not going to talk about it because it doesn't matter, even when they're so glaringly dreadful. I just want to pick you out this comment from the press after the game yesterday that's on Plymouth Live from Chris Errington. Muslic said, "We simply didn't show up in a game where we knew that this was a big one for us. Sloppy from the start, could not even get close to the performance of the last couple of weeks. This is the bit. That's a problem we have. Too many players that cannot deliver consistently the performances we need to be competitive. I think today we have been far, far away from anything. That's the first sign, Sam, isn't it, of public frustration from Muslic at essentially what is befalling of him and the group at the moment.
Well, I think the first sign, to be fair, was probably after Burnley when he said they needed a total change of mentality in the locker room. But it's
He was only in the door 10 days, in all fairness.
No, true. But it's certainly the first, when we had the upturn and obviously now had the downturn again, it's certainly the first sign since the second wave of the downturn, I agree. His comments after Luton were very measured. His comments after the Cardiff game had maybe an undertone of frustration to them, but not so blatantly. I think he's really quite openly called out some members of his squad there, rightly or wrongly. And look, like I said, I'm not an absolutist either way. I'm not, as much as I do blame him and do blame the tactics to a degree, I equally can understand why he's frustrated. The players there, he has high standards, and the players there have turned up and let their heads drop. I don't know if they're mentally exhausted or whether they let their heads drop or whether they don't give two hoops, maybe in some cases. But it's a bad attitude that some of them have got for sure. That being said, I do, and I know it sounds like I'm defending a load of spoiled, overpaid players or whatever. But that being said, I do think part of that it comes down to conditioning. So I do think it all stops with the head coach at the end of the day. I do think under the eras of Lowe and somebody else, one of the main strong points about it was the fact that we did have that that united team, everyone pulling together, everyone was on the right page, everyone was working hard, and there was that right attitude around the team. And yeah, look, maybe he has just inherited one or two rotten eggs, maybe one or two more who are not quite rotten eggs, but have a very weak mentality. And I get from him when he's been dealing with maybe a squad at Circle of Bruges where they are all pulling together, maybe that's difficult for him to deal with. But you do have to adapt. And well, what Graham said is true. I'm going to quote Miran Muslic and hold him to account by his own words. What he said early on, it's important not to go in and change too much too quickly. And I wonder if he's really gone full pelt on this high intensity style, if we're now seeing the result of it in the sense that some players are absolutely on their last legs already, and maybe we are seeing that Bielsa impact already. And again, it just comes back to the same point around having one way and one way only of doing things. And that isn't always very good. I mean, look, I do feel for all that I've said. And again, it isn't just me knee-jerk, but as much as I want because I'm sure people are going to come and say, damn, you after the Millwall game, you were so happy with Mudlich, and you said you were wrong about Schumacher and blah, 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 and whatever. But, what I did say was, and James will testify to this because he was on the pod with you when I said it, and if you want to watch it back, I did say I can still see some ways it can go wrong, and it has gone wrong. But what I also said on that very same pod is, I can still see some ways we can then adapt to that, and if it does go wrong, we can put it right again. The next 11 games for me are about putting it right again, because I do feel now that we're not going to stay up now. We're too far off it, and we look too tired. And there's another Saturday coming up, and where we don't know how to win away from home. Could it happen in theory? Yes, but I think it's now. If you wanted to put a number on it, I'd say it's under 10% now that we stay up. So I think it's about building the foundations and showing that we've got a competitive team and a competitive core of players and the right head coach for next season. Because I do feel that if we continue in the vein we have the last 4 games, there's going to be a lot of very negative energy going into the summer, going into next season. And for the revenue, the commerciality of the club, season ticket renewals, evergreen renewals, it's all going to take a hit if we keep playing in the fashion we have been in the last 4 games. It's absolutely going to take a hit. And the fans are not going to be happy. And fans are going to get fed up of seeing us play this ultra defensive style every game. So we've got to show we can adapt. Can he do it? Yes, he can. Will he do it? Let's see.
It's not an episode of Bob the Builder. Weren't you the man who told us all in the group chat, and you may even have mentioned it on the podcast, I don't know, that this is incredibly similar to the situation that's going on at Manchester United, that there's going to be some short-term pain for some long-term gain? Because it seems very reminiscent of what Ruben Amorim's trying to do at Manchester United, and he's not able to do it because he doesn't have the tools at his disposal. So surely we've just got to...
Yeah, maybe.
look, the damage isn't being done by Miran Muslic. The fire was lit well and truly before Miran Muslic came in. He's just trying to put the fire out, and I don't think it's not that he's not capable. He doesn't have the fire extinguisher to put the fire out. So you've sure. I don't. Where are we going here, Sam? Where are we going? Graham, you can come in if you want.
Yeah, I just want to make this point. As a man motivator, we all eulogised about what he said to the team, and we all felt we would run through brick walls for him. So that's point one. Secondly, when you look at you interview the players, particularly struck by a Better's interview, clear instruction as to what he wants you to do. I think his frustration is the inability of players to execute what he wants to do. He's never going to have a perfect game plan. I think the game plan yesterday was keep it tight with effectively 5-4-1 to start off with, take the life out of them, get to 60 minutes, put the so-called finishers on, and then nick the 1-0 away. I think that was the game plan or something like it. So it wasn't executed by the players because either they didn't listen to what he told them to do or they physically felt unable to do it. It's one of the two, possibly a combination of both. So, but Saturday, with a home park crowd behind them, and if again, I say it again, score first, the atmosphere will be different. And you can lift it and the players can get lifted. They get an energy from the home park crowd. We know that. We know it's, I mean, whether it's worth a goal exactly, but it's an energy that gives the players extra. And we've got to focus on getting up the pitch, getting the chances, because he works on a percentage game. Then, I mean, one of the things I couldn't understand is Pleggy's throws were pathetic. One of the thrusts he's got is a long throw and play off the second ball, and it does cause some opportunities. But last night they barely got in the penalty area. They were shocking. The commentators, so I don't know what's going. So we didn't get many free kicks. So there was one free kick that Sorinola put in. If you remember, he bent it round the beautiful, in the so-called corridor of uncertainty, and the guy just got his toe to it before the person who was a far post could have tapped. I think it might have been El Hadj, put it in. So we didn't get those opportunities. At home, we'll be more on the front foot. We'll get more opportunities. The key is, can we replicate more of that away from home? And the last 3 away performances, patently, we can't. And we've got to address it. Because unless we win 2 of our away games left, possibly 3, we're down. We've got to win at least 2.
Sam, the point we're trying to get at here is that you can employ whatever tactics, whatever system, whatever combination of central defenders and midfielders and what have you like. There is one common denominator from this season. It's not in the dugout. It's not in the boardroom. It's in that dressing room. It's the same group of players that are failing to take on instructions from now 2 head coaches, it would seem. Because Katic came out and said it last night that they didn't, what was his words? We didn't respect the game plan. The team didn't respect the game plan. So they are not taking in the information from Muslic, and they didn't take on board what Rooney wanted them to do. We can't just keep going around blaming the head coach, surely.
To an extent, it's my answer to that. But I do think it then comes back to the fact of what Muslic said of not trying to change too much too soon, and then them making wholesale changes to the way we play. I do feel if you want to look at it from the point of view of, honestly, Muslic maybe better.
Could he not counterpoint that straight away by saying that, well, a team in the second tier of English football in one of the top 10 leagues in Europe should be able to adapt fairly easily. This group of players shouldn't be as one-dimensional as they're seeming that they are.
Not if they're getting injured all the time from it. Look, I will agree to some extent. Yes,
Who's getting injured from Muslic's style of football?
Well, are we not seeing a lot more muscle injuries in recent games?
Not under Muslic, no.
Graham, you said it yourself there about Bielsa, didn't you? That style of play does lead to...
Yeah. Well, there was an article at the weekend on muscle injuries, and there's 25% of all injuries are hamstring injuries. And the reason they're putting it down is the stop-start, energetic press, high-intensity runs, and it's affecting... I mean, Arsenal, I think, have got two of their... Saka is one of them, there's somebody else, who have got that sort of injury. So it is having an impact. The different way managers and head coaches are wanting the teams to play is having an impact. And I do, we've got a really top... Eddie Latimer is meant to be a really top fitness guy, but he hasn't had a pre-season to get him to the fitness levels needed to play the type of game that they want to play. And I don't know whether you can top up mid-season. You can only make a marginal change, surely. So I think this is part of our problem. And our squad is thin. It doesn't look championship quality, and we're facing an inevitable. It's not. It can change, and as I said, and I will keep saying it. Score first, and you'll laugh at me on the weekend if we do against Wednesday and win, because that's what we've got to do, and just come out of the blocks. When's the last time we came out of the blocks? Well, Millwall, wasn't it? Well, 2 goals.
We did win a corner within 20 seconds of the second half starting last night. I thought that was fairly sprightly.
Yeah.
Sam, go on then. Your point about what we were saying about injuries and what have you.
Look, okay, maybe the injuries might be a bit speculative, but my last word on the issue would be, I don't think this is just some squad of pampered, arrogant, horrible, overpaid players. I think this squad has shown they can dig in, and that they're good blokes, and they can work really hard when the crunch comes to it. This is a lot of the squad involved in the incredible recovery in the final 6 games of last season, where we won 3 out of 6 to stay up with very high points total. Some of the squad was still part of the title-winning season. Like I think, Beidou was part of a very successful team who got Elfsberg into the Europa League. Puat should have done well in a lot of good European leagues. Al-Hajj, I still think there's a player in there somewhere, as straight as he can be. He has shown some really good games and real signs of quality. I honestly do not think that this is just a nasty, arrogant squad who will just ruin it for any manager. I don't, and maybe I'm being naive in that respect. I think this is a decent squad who has had a head coach who's gone from one extreme to head coach who's gone to the other. And I'm just going to put it out there. Maybe Muslic might be better long term, but if when we'd have fired Rooney, if we'd have given Nanskeville to the end of the season, does anyone think we'd be on less points than what we are now? I don't. Joe does, clearly.
We had this conversation earlier though, Sam. The 2 games that were in charge, and look, I love Nance and I love Edwards to pieces. The 2 games they had in charge, we needed a late equaliser against Bristol City to get a point, and we offered just as much as we did last night at Stoke, and we got a 0-0. So had we got a 0-0 last night, I challenge you, would you have sat here and been as happy about the performance as you were after that 0-0 at Stoke?
I think that if it did, well, firstly, Bristol City, yes, although to take a last minute goal, we were a better team in that game. In terms of the result at Stoke, it's in the contrast of what it's coming after. Well, for one, we didn't get a 0-0. We conceded 2 goals, one of which was not our fault, I agree, but still, one of which was a little soft. And the second thing being, that 0-0 at Stoke was in the context of being absolutely battered week in, week out on Rooney. And look, I know I said, yes, we've got to give it time, got to take our medicine, it has to get worse before it gets better. And maybe to some extent that it's still true. But equally, on the other hand, if it was just the case that we were sort of consistently, gradually edging our way to being a better team, I think that would be one thing. But the fact that we then had such an improvement and now such a trough again, that to me said this isn't just a case of like a team that is gradually needing to learn to take its medicine. This to me says maybe this is a team that has peaked too soon and it's now struggling to find the answers for us. And maybe over the next few games we will start to find answers again. But like, if it was just a case that we were gradually showing signs of adapting to the style, that would be one thing. But it's almost like we have adapted to the style, and then the style's proven not good enough. And I'm not saying that I would go out there tomorrow and sack Miran Muslic, by the way, at all. But I am saying that if this doesn't, if we don't see more signs of improvement over the next 11 games, and obviously we then give him a whole summer to bring in players suited to his style, that is a very big risk we're taking, because we have totally ripped up the style of play, for rightly or wrongly. And I know I wasn't actually on the post-fan forum pod, so I'm not going to hijack it and turn it into a fan forum pod. But what Simon Hallett said in that did, in one regard, slightly concerned me. I think a lot of the answers he gave about sustainability were good, about commerciality were good, about infrastructure were good. And there is no denying that he has done, and he's continuing to do, a good job in all those regards, with maybe some minor quibbles about certain bits, but broadly doing a very good job in all three of those regards. But the football side is an absolute bin fire, and it has been a bin fire for over 18 months now. And the bit that concerned me in the quote in that regard is when he said, because of Rooney was doing so badly, we decided it wasn't just enough to have another manager with the same style of play. We had to go for a totally different style of play. But like, that's because it's Wayne Rooney. He's not got a good record in the game. He was clearly, without being a gossip, he was clearly plagued by a lot of his own personal demons during the time we were out here. To say that giving Wayne Rooney the best possible chance to represent that style of play, that's like trying to get Mr. Blobby to fly a helicopter and therefore saying no one can ever fly a helicopter. It's not exactly the best advocate for that style of play. So to say that because Rooney didn't do that style of play badly, nobody else did it badly, nobody else could do it well, is, in my view, a logical fallacy. But there we go.
Very quickly before I move it on, because we are now 47 minutes in and we've not even got anywhere near questions or a Sheffield Wednesday preview. VW Coco says we beat Brentford under Nansquin and Edwards. I do have to accept that we did beat Brentford, and that was a good performance. But I was talking purely in games. I don't want to say games that matter, because Brentford mattered a lot, but the important bread and butter stuff. I'm talking about those two performances. And I just want to go back to the point I made earlier about when I asked Sam and Graham the question about why the group of players can't take on the instructions of the last two head coaches. I'm not sitting here calling this group of players bad eggs. I'm not slagging them off at all. I'm merely just asking, why are we in a position where they are clearly being asked to do things by the head coaches tactically, and we're just not able to do it? Is it just that they're not good enough, or is there an issue in getting the messages through? Who knows? But that really does seem to be the issue. Let's try and maybe it is. Maybe it is. Let's try and move the conversation on, because I do want to get this segment of the episode in. One player each from last night's performance, can be good or bad. Take your pick. Sam, I'll let you go first. Obviously, if you are going to be bad, do remember that some of the players do watch this. So do try and be as kind as you can.
Yeah, I do think we're going to have to talk a little bit about Beidou. To an extent. I know he wasn't on the pitch for a great length of time, and maybe this is kind of going against my previous point of it's not the players, it's the setup, it's the coaching. But I am becoming increasingly concerned, and I know this seems like I'm picking a scapegoat because he was only on for 7 minutes, but I do feel with literally all the rest of them, they've shown over the last few weeks that they are capable of putting in quality performance. But honestly feel with Beidou, probably the best game he put in was his very first game at Brentford, when he was subbed off after 50 minutes. And even that was maybe like a 5 out of 10 performance. And I do think, as much as it contradicts my earlier comment about how he had shown signs of,
right.
Yeah, maybe performance was a Freudian slip there, but it contradicts my earlier comment about how he has done very well elsewhere. I do feel that, at least with all the others, they've shown flashes and they've shown moments. Even Al Hajj, as much as he seems to be put in the same bracket of Beidou, and they both seem to be becoming sort of the two joint scapegoats now of the team, I do think El Hadj in the first half had some moments of where he would pick the ball up in space, he would get it out to Puhac, he would try and play players. I do think he was probably our our best attacking player in the first half, as low as the bar of that is. So I do feel all the rest of them have got that little bit of credit in the bank that they've shown flashes with Argyle. Beidou, despite his impressive track record at Elfsborg, he has not had one single good game for Argyle. He's had probably about 4 or 5 starts and about 5 or 6 more off the bench. I haven't checked the exact stats. And he has been somewhere between poor and appalling in every single one, if I'm being brutally honest. And that has got to be, and I know that maybe goes against Joe's words about being kind and respectful, but it's nothing to do with him as a person. Like I do feel that he is capable of better. If he wasn't capable of better, then he wouldn't have been so well for Elfsborg. But I think I said when we signed him, I kind of said with a player with a record as good as his, I'm amazed no one else signed him. And again, maybe now I'm sort of starting to see why no one else signed him, because I do feel that the Championship football is proving a very big step up for him, quite frankly. And I feel that he's not getting on the ball enough. And even when he does get on the ball, he seems a bit of a rabbit in the headlights. He seems to sort of have, you can almost see him, what do I do with it kind of thing. And that is concerning. And I hope it's something that he's having some kind of coaching plan or something addressed on him on the training field, because it is quite a struggle to watch him at times, in truth, because I do feel that he looks very, very out of his depth. And I think there needs to be some honest conversations being had on the training field about what it is that's making him perform so badly. Because whilst I do think that my overarching point in this podcast, I do maintain it, that the style of football isn't helping him, I do feel that other players who the style also isn't helping. And they've at least shown flashes. Beidou, we've not even seen flashes with Argyle. We've had maybe 1 5 out of 10 game, and a lot that are even worse than that. So I do think I am greatly concerned that he's not performing to anywhere near the level we would have hoped for. I will say all the usual caveats apply. He didn't have any kind of pre-season because obviously the Swedish domestic season finished in October. But I do feel now he's played enough games that the games he's played is equivalent to a full pre-season's worth. So we really should now be at the point where we are seeing signs of improvement, and we're not. If anything, it's getting worse, if I'm being brutally honest. So I just hope that with an actual pre-season and dropping down to that lower level of League One, he could be a capable player for us in League One next season. But I am concerned about the standard of performance of seeing from him. So I feel he's the one I have to mention in a bad sense. Sorry, Mr. Beidou, if you are watching.
Sam relegating us to League One. Graham,
that can happen with a slip of the tongue, can't it?
It can. So yeah. As our decision makers know. Graham, your player that you want to pick out from last night?
Matti Soranola, I would say, on balance. If everybody had his enthusiasm, desire, passion, we might have had a better outcome last night. But everybody else was way below their best, and worryingly so, I would say. You know, the Puhac, Maxi, Katic, who've been reasonably decent, they were way off it. So Matty was the only redeeming feature. And I'm not going to have a go at Beidou because I think he was bought to be centre of a 4-2-3-1, and he played behind the main striker. Same with Hadj, possibly. And he's not a 10. He's not. He doesn't make the right sort of runs. He's not aggressive. He's a sort of. One thing I will say, when he played against Brentford, he did outpace 2 of their central defenders fairly early on.
Sure. For sure.
I thought, and he stumbled a bit on the ball. I thought, oh, crikey. So, but it doesn't fit into the 3-4-2-1 system. It just doesn't, and I can't see any prospect of him doing so. So, yeah, we paid a lot of money for him, but yeah, I can't see a role for him in a substantive role in the next 11 games. I just can't. But I'm not having a go at him. So he's in the right system. He may be a very talented player. He's an international player, so he's got to have some ability about him, but not in our system. You can see him in a 4-2-3-1 playing behind the main man. You can see it making the, getting beyond the main striker and doing the little balls through. I can see him doing that. He's that sort of player, but not in our system. Anyway, so I don't want. I don't like slagging off our own players. I really don't. And I do, when I look at Passotti, feel touch uncomfortable when so much focus of people is doing so. Yeah, they've had a bad game. Yeah, they're not playing at their best, but I try to be a bit more half glass full and look at a positive. Because, yeah, we've had some bad players over the years, and I can tell you we've had a lot more bad players than we got now. And we no need to go into them. Let's concentrate on the positives and try and get the players supported and doing what Muslic wants them to do.
Yeah, for sure. I just want to single out I say one player. I'm going to single out two. The midfield combination last night did not work one iota. Of Houghton and JB. I've been a defender of Darko JB on this podcast, much to my detriment in many group chats that I'm a part of. But it just is not working there with Houghton at the moment. We are really missing Adam Randall, and fingers crossed that injury that's had him sit out the last couple of games isn't serious and he can get back as quickly as possible. I wasn't on Sunday night, obviously, but the little bits I've seen of Malachi Boateng since he's come in really excite me. And
Yeah,
a midfield combination of Adam Randall and Malachi Boateng would really, it would make me a little bit happier than what we're flogging at the moment. I accept Jordan Houghton is a hard-working professional. But when it comes down to the nitty gritty of it at the moment with him and JB, it's just not working out, is it? As a midfield too. Let's take a quick spin onto the man of the match slide on Passotti. This ought to make interesting reading because I haven't actually looked at it yet. And Sorinola overwhelmingly comes out 106 votes this week. People obviously not wishing to divulge their opinions. Sorinola with 42 votes. Interestingly, Graham, 31 votes for the no player option.
Yeah, I saw that.
I'm not sure I've seen that much this season. I'll be brutally honest with you. I do check.
I think it was after the Norwich game. I think I seem to.
Was it right? But that's understandable in all fairness. Plaggy picked up 12 votes. 6 for Nico Katic. Interestingly, Nathaniel Ogbetter went on to pick up 5 votes. And actually, I do think Ogbetter at the moment. I thought he had an excellent game on Saturday night against Manchester City for the hour. And I actually thought, well, if he's coming off at that period of the game, that he's going to feature on Tuesday night. And I was a little bit surprised to see him not start. But maybe Nathaniel Ogbetter will get a go on Saturday. So we are 57 minutes in. I don't really want to talk about anything else on Hull City. Sam, do you have any more rants you want to get out before we move it on to the John Allsop derby, or are you ready to save them for a little bit later on when we get to questions?
No, I think I've said most of what I want to say. If there is anything more that occurs to me during questions, then I'll say it then.
Quite right. Let's not peak you too soon in tonight's episode. 58 minutes in, over 1,100 of you watching. You're very welcome on Saturday afternoon. The old foes of many yesteryears, Sheffield Wednesday, come back to home park with Danny Roll still in charge, would you believe it? And John Allsop running for cover at where Sheffield Wednesday and Plymouth Argyle are in their respective divisions. We've already alluded to it that this is probably not really the type of game we want to look forward to this weekend, Graham. Sheffield Wednesday have had a fairly decent season, haven't they? Obviously, they've been a little bit like Bristol City of recent memory. They have a good run, then they go on a deplorable run, then they have another good run, and they seem to get so far and then seem to drop down a couple places before realising they can get back to that spot again. Isn't going to be an easy afternoon, is it? And what's more important, it's a lesser spotted 3 p.m. kickoff at Home Park.
Yeah, one of 2 consecutive 3 p.m. kickoffs. They have lost 4 of their last 5 games, interestingly. So, and they've slipped. They were sniffing around the playoff places, but I think they're something like 6 points off now on literally mid-table. So, I don't know. I did look at, out of curiosity, I looked at their starting team first game of the season to the starting 11 in the last game, and I was really surprised that only 4 who started in August played in the last game. So they've had quite a change around, which seems to have passed me by. Windass and Smith are bête noirs up top. They seem to switch. And I think I would pay money to see Windass and Katic having a face-off. Perhaps we can get some retribution for what he did to Mr. Cooper, possibly. So I think they and of course we've got the unmentionable Mr. Sissoko, who Wednesday fans have not taken to. I know there was a few clips on Passotti earlier in the week where how bad he was. So we all know.
You'll be delighted
Joe,
to know,
I'm not going to be sitting anywhere near you because I know what's going to happen.
You'll be delighted to know we're a few days out, and at the moment I don't have quite the same paranoia about Adam Forshaw, weirdly. But whether or not that develops closer to the weekend is a different thing.
Well, he's only going to be on the pitch for. I think he's played 5 minutes here and then 10 or 15 minutes there, so he's not had much impact. But it'd be interesting to see whether Joe Edwards comes back because he was ready to play against Hull. I was surprised not to see him, to be honest, because I thought it was a leadership type game that he would have been suited to. But maybe he's being saved for Saturday. And if he is, and if Mr. Sissoko is anywhere near him, I'd like to see him in Rosette. Thank you very much. That would be lovely. But that's just a cynical view. But Wednesday, they're a physical team. We've got to be up for it. We've got to win the second balls. And I'm not going to say it again, but you know what we need to do if we're going to win. So
yeah.
But I mean, they're one of those inconsistent sides. So let's hope they're inconsistently bad when they play us.
Bartley asks, could Joe do a job in midfield? Not at the moment. I'm currently nursing a bit of an ankle injury. Joe Edwards. No, probably not. Not at this stage of his career. I'm more than happy to have him back on that right-hand side if we can get him there. But then again, that would be equally just as harsh on Matty Sorinola. So Miron's got a heck of a decision to make when it comes round to that. Sam Graham's alluded there to Sheffield Wednesday's physicality, and we know all about that from recent seasons. There's nothing about Sheffield Wednesday that, let's be honest, we don't know at this point. What sort of shake up to the team do you want to see on Saturday, or more to the point, do you expect to see?
Sheffield Wednesday under Gary Roll have been a good side, and they've proved it's possible to play a more structured and direct style without treating the ball like a hot potato. And it almost as if there can be a middle ground. Who knew? Not that I'm aiming that at anybody. I'm expecting a little bit of a shake-up to the teams. I honestly think that a player who's gone under the radar for having quite a poor run of games is actually Timo Puach, to be honest with you. He had a really sort of bright first few games, but then he's really gone under the radar. His crossing's gone right off. Whenever he got the ball yesterday, his crossing was quite wasteful. And given the fact that he had a good game at Man City, given the fact that he had made a big positive impact off the bench against Sunderland, got a in Rooney's final home game, got a lovely cross, lovely assist against Middlesbrough. I would maybe
had a decent hour against Millwall as well, because I know who you're going to mention.
Yeah. The fact of all the above, I would think the unthinkable and maybe give Ogbeta a start. As much as he became a bit of a punchline earlier in the season, I think he is somebody who very admirably have, despite the fact that the team themselves have been quite up and down, admirably raised the standard of performance quite well. So I would give Ogbeta a go. Maybe give Cornell Such a go at centre back instead of maybe just. I don't know who you do him instead of, because the one who had by far the worst game of the three was Maxey, but he's been absolutely incredible up to then. And then
4 yellow cards already as well for Maxey.
Yeah,
he's one from a ban, isn't he? So
I don't think that applies now. We are not in the 10 games.
It's not end of March.
The 10 game.
End of March is when the 10 game one gets wiped off. I think the 5-game one has already been wiped off. I'm fairly sure on that. So I would maybe give Cornell Stoops a go, but it's weird because the one who would probably you would bring him in for is Pleggy, but he was the one who was the best of the three last night. So maybe I would give him another start. I'd give Sorinola another start, but with Joe Edwards to come off the bench if required. If Adam Randall was fit, then I would bring him right back in. One good thing I do like about Muslic, and I really do think this is an underrated factor, he's absolutely, and I really do think it is a good thing, is he is absolutely not one to rush a player back. Comment coming in from Stevie Vaughan saying we could play Joe Edwards right wing back, Sorino left wing back. I honestly think if you are going to play those two, you do it.
Or either the other way around, Joe Edwards left wing back, Sorinola right wing back.
If anything, I'd do it the other way around because I do think that Sorinola, as good as he is in the right system, as harder worker as he is absolutely not the one to play on his unnatural side because his strength is getting the ball and going down the line. I think if you make him cut inside too much, you really blunt what makes him an effective player. So I wouldn't have him on his wrong side for me. That being said, Joe Edwards has only just come back into the squad after 5 months out. Is he going to come straight in and start? Probably not. So I'm going to go Sorinola and better. I'm going to probably just give the same trio one more game together of Maxi, Katic and Pleggy, but knowing that Cornell Stoops is waiting at the wings if he needs to come in. I would bring in Adam Randall if I could, but like I said, one good thing about Muslic is he isn't one to rush back a player. He's one that said, let's just have him wait till he's fully fit. We don't want to lose him for longer. And I do like that because so many managers, Derek Adams being the worst defender, would rush a player back in and then they get another injury. So that is one thing I do like very, very much about Muslic. He won't rush players back. So if Adam Randall is ready, I think he comes back in. If he's not ready, I trust Miron Muslic to make that call and not put him in. I would absolutely start Boateng. I'd go Boateng and Randall if Randall's fit. If Randall's not fit, Boateng and Houghton. And then I would, assuming Ryan Hardie still isn't fit, I would go, I guess, put Callum Wright back in. I don't think he's got much at all end product, but at least you'll get 100% effort from him. I've got to say, Barley Mumba as well, despite the fact that and I know this is kind of touching back on the previous game, but also looking forward to the next game. Barley Mumba, despite the fact that I was calling for him to be in number 10, and when he played so well there against Cardiff, I was very smug about it. And even much as he was decent at times there at Man City, I do feel that Barley Mumba had a dreadful game yesterday. He didn't do anything in that number 10 role. Didn't get on the ball. When he did get on the ball, he was wasteful with it. So, I'm finding myself struggling with that. But I guess I would maybe put him in just because, Al Hajj. But then again, you know what? I'm thinking about it. I'm kind of talking myself into giving Al Hajj another game, but I do think Al Hajj in the first half did have some bright moments. So I would actually go Callum Wright, Al Hajj, Bundu. That's my front three. Yeah, that's probably what I'd do.
And do you know what? Man for man, I agree with the People's Champion. That's exactly the same team. Never ever to be uttered again, but that's exactly what I would have said.
And if truth be told, I don't really think Miron can do anything else, does he? Our best attacking weapon is seemingly out for another couple of weeks, so we're still having to patch it up. There is still a part of me that wants to get Barley Mumba on the left side of the number 10s. I go back to that. I know I'm harping on to the start of last season, but just that first game of last season when we played a more 4-3-3. It was a similar forward line setup to what we're implementing at the moment. And Mumba on that left side of the three up front was actually really effective.
But he could come on as the finisher like he did.
Possibly against, he certainly had a better impact against Cardiff than he's had in the last two.
The one player we haven't mentioned is Barry Bannon. And every game I see Sheffield Wednesday play, he's the man that makes them tick. So who is going to take Bannon? It's got to be Houghton, I think. He's going to be all over him. And he's probably got the nous to do it. But we have to get on him because he's 36, something like that. He's still a master craftsman. pulling the strings. So we've really got to be sharp on that.
I have to admit, I was somewhat surprised. This is going slightly off topic. I'm going to go back to the comment that's on screen in a minute. Somewhat surprised me, like 2 years ago, when Rangers were going through a really bad patch and they seemed to have no leaders on the pitch up in the SPL. I was amazed that they didn't try and go and get Bannon, because he's the sort of player that up at Glasgow Rangers could have really made a difference in their midfield. That, and there was a selfish side of me that just wanted him gone and us never have to go up against him ever again. Sam, just very quickly, and Graham, really, your thoughts on the comment on screen? I just thought it was interesting. People agreeing with you, Sam. This is a scary position to be in. What about JB as one of the 10s?
I don't hate
Go back
it.
to Middlesbrough last year, played him further forward, best game in an Argyle shirt, yada yada yada.
Yeah, I don't hate it, but then I do also feel that some aspect of that game was him just going forward more because we were so good that day as a team and dominated possessions, and also Middlesbrough made so many defensive mistakes. As good as he was that day, I don't necessarily think that playing him further forward is going to be an appetite for him to. It's going to be a natural thing that he's going to then suddenly play to that level. But I guess he can't be much worse than he was last night. So I don't hate the idea of playing JB in that number 10 role, but I do think on balance Al Haj deserves another chance, because I do think that as much as it's easy to bracket him in with Beidou, I do think Al Haj did have some moments of showing he could be up to this level. So I think I would give him another go. As much as I don't hate the idea, but I will stick with my guns, I think.
I don't want Pi to come after us here at Argyle Life, but if we're rebranding it, then Sam's Corner's just been upgraded to Sam's World. Just a Jana has said, Sam. So there you go. Start of stage and screen now is our wonderful Sam down. Let's get some score predictions then. Let's quickly get 3 scores off you before, 2 scores of mine, before we rattle through some questions. Graham, can you remember what you put in the predictions league?
2-1 to Wednesday.
2-1 to Wednesday.
And
1-1. Are you sticking with it?
Yeah, definitely. And I meant 2-1 to Argyle.
Right.
Wednesday, yeah. And I think I had 1-1 at Portsmouth. Is that right?
I think that one way or other, this is going to get worse before it gets better. So I'm going to go for a 2-0 defeat.
Oh, I love the positivity. No one's visiting Sam's World after this. I can't remember for the life of me what I put in the predictions league, so I'm going to stick my neck out and go for a 1-1 draw. I actually think, Graham, this might be one of the games where we take the lead first, but we may then try and sit back on it. We might then just try and sit back on it a little bit too much and may get done. Superintendent may have just cast a shadow over why Barry Bannon never got the move to Rangers a couple of years ago. According to Wikipedia, he's a Celtic fan. So that's a pretty good reason not to go north of the border and play for Glasgow Rangers. Let's rattle through some questions then. We'll try and give it about 15 minutes worth of questions. I'll keep showing your predictions on the screen as I read. We're going to go to Blue Sky first. We are on Blue Sky, if you didn't already know, so do follow us up on there. We do try and get to the questions if we can. Problem is, because so many come in live, it's quite difficult to go back and find the ones we've asked for. How do I get away with this? We're after 9 o'clock. Shit Argyle Chance on Blue Sky asks us, Graham, does Randall's 6.5 out of 10 season look even more impressive watching his partners now in his absence? Would we want either Houghton or JB next season, even in League One?
No.
Okay. And what do you think about, does it make Adam's 6.5 out of 10 season look a little bit better now that what his partners are able to do? I mean, I think we universally agree that the midfield didn't work last night.
He will be a better player in League One than the Championship.
I honestly think that Randall's had more like a 7 out of 10 season, as much as he had a really bad run over Christmas in the tail end of the Rooney era, and maybe some games under Nanskill he wasn't great. I do feel for most of the Rooney era, he's a big reason that the Rooney era was very bad as opposed to very, very, very bad. I do think he kind of won us a lot of points in those games. In the good run under Rooney, he ran the midfield. We had those 3 wins out of 5, and also defensively, he was to thank for a couple of the draws and got that free kick at Derby, which, albeit deflected, turned that from 0 points into 1. So I think Randall has had a very good season, and I do think that we will be better off when he comes back in. And I think in League One, assuming it is to be League One, he could be a really excellent player, could be one of the best midfielders in the league. Because I do think he is a better player now than he was in the title season. He's just obviously coming up against tougher. I think he is. For me, he's my nomination for player of the season, because in the good run under Muslic, he was front and centre of it. And under Rooney, he was probably the main player, stopping it being even worse. So I think Randall's had a solid 7.5 out of 10 seasons. And Houghton, I think, had a good run of games. When we had our good run under Muslic, he was pivotal to it alongside Randall, but he was very poor last night. As for Darko JB, my opinions on him are well known, and I don't think we should have signed him. I think you can count the number of good games he had for this club on one hand, if I'm being truthful, and you can probably count the number of okay games he had for this club on 2 hands. The majority of games he had for us have been poor. I don't know why so much fancied, if I'm being truthful. There is potential there, but there's potential in a lot of players. Potential and reality are 2 very different things. So personally, I don't think he'll ever play at his level again, is my honest truth. So we'll see if I'm right or wrong on that. I do feel that if we did have him in League One, he would be, to use Graham's words on Randall, I'll use the same on JB. I think he would be better in League One than in the Championship. But does that mean he's the kind of player we're wanting to spend our hard-earned money on? No, I don't agree that he would be. So I would say he is firmly 4th choice for the rest of the season. Maybe, as I alluded to a minute ago, he might do better in the number 10 role, but I certainly don't want him playing in CM, I'm afraid to say. And I do think that we, as soon as Randall is ready, get him back in.
Ash, I'm going to probably butcher your surname here now on Facebook. Ash Saward says, everyone still think it's Rooney's fault. Clowns. Sam, do you want to take that one?
But yeah, I think that's a bit of a silly comment, if I'm being truthful. Just because I have, let's put it, reservations about how Miran Muslic is doing, doesn't mean that I'm hankering for Wayne Rooney back, because Muslic is doing better than Rooney in almost all of the key metrics. But probably the only one slightly below him is maybe goals scored or chances created. But then even with the Millwall game, maybe not even that. But in every defensive metric, far better. In XG differential, far better. And in actual points on the board, better. And in terms of actually how he comes across, in terms of how much faith do I have, how much confidence do I have that he will turn around the woes we're currently facing. Whilst I'd be lying if I said I had total faith, I certainly have far more faith in him than what I do in Wayne Rooney, to be honest. He looks and sounds the part. He's clearly a capable coach based on his record at Circlate and based on his fantastic managerial masterclass against Liverpool. Am I totally won over by him? No, I'm not, for the reasons I mentioned earlier in the podcast. But he's clearly a capable coach. He's clearly a very good communicator. So, come on. Wayne Rooney, as much as I don't think that you can blame Rooney forever, sometimes you have to blame the current head coach as well. Equally, at the same time, Rooney's not blameless, and I certainly wouldn't want him back. And I certainly think that he has to take the fair share of the blame for the fact we were even worse under his tenure than what we are now. So, sorry, Ash, I don't agree. Rooney was still very much to blame.
Let's rattle through some of the questions I've starred then before we call it an end tonight. Ash Brooks, was he offside for the second goal? Ash, I've sent you the lines from Stockley Park. Yes, he was. You know that. You're just trying to get a rise out of me. Graham Darren Curtis asks, do we give the youth more of a role?
Yeah,
we're obviously questioning the number 10 position. Freddie Asaka's gone missing.
Of the 3, out of Freddie, Caleb, or Tegan, there's only one player that can play the 10 role, and that's Tegan. And the trouble is, can you play a 16-year-old in that demanding physical role? He's got the attributes. He's got a bit of he's got great energy. He's got pace. I mean, personally, I would like to see him on the bench, and I'd like to get him on for 10 minutes or so, give him a chance. and I don't know. I mean, he's 17 in a few days' time, I think. So we'll know whether he's going to be signing for us. And I have noted he's playing in the under-18s a lot, and not part of the first team squad like Caleb and Freddie are. So I don't know. But out of the three in the system he plays, Tegan would be the wild card. But physicality for a 16-year-old, it's a big ask. But 10, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, game ending, I'd give him a chance.
Looking at the comments that have come through tonight, Sam Down superfan, Sam, PAFC King. I was wondering whether or not it was your burner. Asking why is going on to the same sort of question. Why is Roberts and Isaka nowhere near the side? And obviously with the midfield issues that we had last night, Caleb Roberts was excellent against Brentford. Do we think Muslic is stuck in his ways and his style of play, which doesn't bode well for the pair of them next season?
Yes, as I said earlier, yes. I mean, look, Caleb Roberts, I think, is someone who may well fit more into a Muslic style because he's very busy, very, aggressive physically. He's kind of like a young Randall in that respect. So
how many squads has he been a part of since Muslic come in, do we know, Caleb, incidentally?
Maybe like the first one or two, maybe, not much
Yeah,
more than that.
But he's always part of the travelling party. He was there for Hull, wasn't he, Sam, I think. So he's been part of it. I see the comment about Freddie. I mean, Freddie can only play probably the left-hand side, number 10 in the current role, in the current setup. But has he got the physicality to win those second balls off the number 9? I doubt it personally.
Yeah, I think maybe Freddie as one of the 10s next season. I do think that Muslic has very much, when Rooney gave quite a lot of minutes to all three of them, and Nance did as well. Muslic has very much got rid of, probably all of those three from the starting squad, and maybe that's good. We filled out a little bit in January, not as much as I would have liked, but we added a bit in January. Had some players come back from injury, so to some extent it's down to that. To some extent it's down to it being a relegation dogfight. You don't want to play too many young players in that, and I get that, but I think the summer and the early part of next season, assuming that Miran Muslic, of course, is still our manager next season, which I think on balance there's a very high chance he will be. It would have to go very badly for him to be sacked over the summer, or it would have to go very well for him to be poached. Most likely it's going to be somewhere in between those two. So I do think if Miran Muslic is our manager for next season, then we will see whether he genuinely does have an aversion to playing youth players or whether it was just the circumstances, So I do think that, Saka is one of the 10s, Finn is one of the 10s, could work. I think, there are whisperings going around that Tegan Finn's going to be sold before too long anyway. Because I think out of the three I mentioned, he has by far the highest potential of that three. He's the youngest of that three. So Caleb Roberts and Freddie Saka, hopefully at League One, they will get some minutes and will prove they're good enough for that level.
You need to get the comment in about whether or not Muslic will be here on the first day of next season, didn't you? Stevie Vaughan asks, when is Hardie back? The general gist is a couple of weeks yet, Stevie, unfortunately. Yeah, what was his words before Man City? He's not progressing the way we'd hoped, which is not great, if truth be told. But then again, as anyone who suffers with back issues knows, a trapped nerve in the back is an awkward bugger to fix. There's not a huge amount you can do. It's a lot of manipulation, a lot of physio. So hopefully that nature just takes its course there, and Ryan can be back out. There wasn't. Did I dream something that there was a positive update at some point that Ryan was out with the team kicking the ball around or something over the weekend? Or have I dreamt that?
But he didn't travel up to Manchester.
Was it back end of last week before they left that he was kicking a ball around, or have I completely imagined that?
I didn't see or hear anything about that. So either you've dreamed it or I've completely missed it. One of the two.
If Ryan Hardie's partner is watching, I don't always dream about Ryan Hardie. It's just something obviously popped into my head. Robin's Nest, although Sandra will be delighted that Ryan's always on our mind. Robin's Nest says 5 wins out of the next 11 games and try to draw more than we lose. I mean, it sounds easy on paper, doesn't it? 5 wins and you might be okay. 45 may well still end up being the magic number when the music stops.
But that's the average. Sorry, that's the average of the last 5 years, 45.
Because you look at club, I know we're not in a great way now that we've lost that game last night, but you look at the likes of Stoke and Cardiff, and you still wouldn't necessarily have a huge amount of faith in them going on mad runs between now and the end of the season. Do we still think it'll be around the 45, 46, 47 mark, or are we going to go on what was last year? We're looking above 50.
I think about 47, because I think if you have a look at it now, the target teams are Stoke City and Cardiff City. Pompey are over the hill and far away. John Mousinho changed the style of play around Christmas time by far the better, and they've been on a great run, certainly at home. I think I'm not going to Fratton Park in anything other than sheer hope, to be honest, because their home form is excellent. Oxford have had a little bit of a wobble lately, but by and large, under Gary Rowett, they've shown mid-table form. So again, I think they're maybe not quite over the hill and far away, but certainly on the very top of the hill, ready to get over it. Hull City under Rubén Sellés have solidly produced lower mid-table form. Certainly away from home, they've been very good. At home, not been so good. Obviously, they got a win last night, of course. But they, again, new manager effect has helped. The two clubs that I think we need to look at, again, I do put our chances very low, but if we're gonna target anyone, it's Stoke City and Cardiff City, which again makes our lacklustre display against Cardiff the other week all the more frustrating. I think that it's very possible that one of Stoke or Cardiff don't average more than a point a game. Stoke are on 36 points with 10 games to go. Cardiff, they're also on 36 points with 10 games to go. So if you maybe expect that one of those might get 12 or 13 points out of the next 10. If one of them only gets a point a game, that leaves them on 46. With our goal difference, magic number 47. So I think 47 will do it, probably. I don't think 45 will quite do it, because that would only mean, Stoke or Cardiff would only need to get 9 points out of 10 games. I think they're both very capable of doing that. So I don't think 45 will do it. I think we're looking at the number as being 47, maybe 48. Will we get there?
We getting there?
No. I think we'll end up at 42.
Yeah, the key is winning 3 games in a row. And we've got 2 home games sandwiched with Portsmouth sandwiched in the middle. Win the 2 home games and win at Portsmouth, we get 9 points. If a team wins 1, draws 1 and loses 1, we gain 5 points in 3 games. Then it's game on. So the critical thing, we've got to do the semi-impossible, is win away at Portsmouth. I always felt we had to win away at Hull or Portsmouth first to stand a chance of staying up. And I still maintain that. If we can get wins at home in the next 2 games and win at Portsmouth, we're right in for it. And personally, I've always said it's going to be on the last day of the season like last year.
I hope not.
And it's going to be, I just hope Leeds have run away with the league by then. But it's just in my bones. I still think we'll be there or thereabouts. We against all odds, we'll win. Have we won 2 games in a row this season yet?
West Brom and Millwall in the league.
Yes. Yeah.
With Liverpool in between, yeah.
Yeah. So this time we're going to win 3 games in a row. If we can do that, but it comes back to what I said right at the start. We've got to come out of the blocks, get that first goal, and then we got a chance. But if we don't do any of that, I don't know. If we don't get 9 points in the next 3 games, I'm fearful.
I have to say a victory over Leeds on the final day and staying up on the last day of the season would certainly put a good start to my holiday in the Aegean Islands, as I'll be about 28,000 feet by the time the referee blows the halftime whistle that day. So, gents, unless there's anything else you have to talk about, any AOBs? Sam, you've muted yourself, which is incredibly awkward. This is Sam's world, and Sam has muted himself.
One quick thing is that as much as me and Joe have disagreed a lot on this podcast, one thing we've agreed on quite a bit over the months is the subject of Ryan Hardie. And I do think now that as much as, yes, he can frustrate people. Yes, he goes on long runs about scoring. Yes, he can make a few, bad games here and there. The last few games have absolutely shown, and I think me and Joe can both take our plaudits on this one, what we've been saying for months. We are a stronger team with Ryan Hardie in it. And let's just hope he gets back to fitness soon, because if anyone's going to give us a chance of survival, it's him. And I think we can take a self-congratulatory moment on that one, because I feel we've both been fighting that corner for a while. As much as is he the absolute perfect championship striker? No, if he was, he wouldn't be playing for Plymouth Argyle. But he's the best we've got, I think, at the minute in that part of the field, and he's our best hope of doing a miracle.
I agree.
And thank you. I've retired the tin hat. Hopefully, it will never be needed
We
to
are
be
a better
pulled back
team with
out.
Ryan Hardie in it, and I think that debate has now been settled.
It has, and I've been banging that drum ever since we restarted this podcast, haven't I, Sam? Much to detriment of me in group chats and online. Gents, that's it. An hour and a half. We've been going 90 minutes. I think that's good enough for me. I think I've won on points in the first of an instalment of battles against Sam. There won't be, there might be a sequel. We'll have to talk about rematch clauses and see if, we can get on the Riyadh season card and go up against Anthony Joshua on the same night or something. Sam, Graham, thank you very much for joining me. Me and Sam will be back in situ on Sunday night, even post Sheffield Wednesday, where we're going to be joined by Adam and Dan. If they didn't know it already, they do now, that they will be joining us on the panel. So we're back to a 4 on Sunday night, and then we will be back in place again next Thursday night, post the Portsmouth game. More news to come from me on that on Sunday. But for now, that is it. As Stevie Watson says, I can't put it any better than that. Thank you all for watching. And for God's sake, keep the faith, because if we don't keep the faith, we've got nothing worth cheering for. See you all on Sunday night, folks.